Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. We have a very, very interesting live stream tonight. I'm going to give you about 20 to 30 questions that attorneys in New Mexico and Los Angeles are going to ask of Alec Baldwin. And the district attorney in Santa Fe is going to ask these questions as well. The detectives have probably already asked these questions, or maybe some of them or most of them, but hit subscribe to this channel right this second. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers. Everything I talk about is based on public record reporting and journalism. The links will all be below in the description section of all my Alec Baldwin segments. Now, especially the uploads. Now, hit subscribe to my super chat. I can't thank you enough. You allow me to do these live streams. If you enjoy the live streams, your super chat support is greatly appreciated. You want to talk about this or any topic via super chat, that would be greatly appreciated. Hit subscribe. We are almost at 200,000 subscribers. Now, if you read this article, the cinematographer's family estate is going to sue Alec Baldwin eventually. They're very likely waiting for criminal charges to be filed. Now, the New Mexico statute states for involuntary manslaughter, it states, if you are, and by the way, Eric H526, Luke St. Martin, thank you for being amazing moderators. Everyone here, thank you. It states very clearly, if you are engaged in a lawful act, but you do not abide by a safety protocol, and you do not abide by ordinary, usual caution and circumspection, if you are not cautious enough, if you are not devoted to safety protocols, if you don't follow safety protocols, okay, then you could be charged with involuntary manslaughter, okay? If you are not prudent, cautious, thoughtful, if you're reckless, if you're incompetent, then you can be charged with involuntary manslaughter even if you're doing something that is legal. You can be charged with a crime, even if you say it's just an accident. You will then have to prove that it was just an accident and that you did everything you could. Alec Baldwin is going to be asked about 20 questions, and I'll list them off right now. From the most important, I mean, all of these are very important, but here, number one, you could take notes at home because these attorneys in New Mexico, Los Angeles, everywhere are going to ask these questions. Number one, why wasn't the armor in the church? Number one, the number one question to ask Baldwin, the director, the assistant director, the producers of Rust is, why wasn't the armor in the church? That's the question. Why wasn't the armor in the church? And if Alec Baldwin wants to blame everyone else, including the person whose life he ended, if he wants to say that, oh, well, it's not my fault, she told me to point in her direction, then why wasn't the armorer in the church? Because the armorer was the expert that he was supposed to rely on. The assistant director can't, the assistant director, first of all, can't be blamed. It's not his job to check the firearm. The armorer was supposed to hand him the firearm. That is industry standard. That is exactly what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to wait. If he didn't check the firearm himself, which is another question we're going to ask right now. Exactly, Donna, exactly. If he wanted to say, it's not my fault, I pulled back the hammer, I was told to do it by the cinematographer, oh my God, why wasn't the armor in the church? That's number one. The armor, and TM, thank you. The armor in the church should have explained to Alec Baldwin how to utilize the firearm and should have checked the firearm in front of him and showed him that it was unloaded. And they would have found the live round that would have prevented the loss of life and the injury. So that's number one. Why wasn't the armor in the church? He's going to be investigated in New Mexico by attorneys in New Mexico. David Von Kettering, hello. Number two is, why didn't he check the firearm himself? What stopped this man, this morally superior liberal Democrat who has an opinion on everything under the sun, who has taken a giant dump on 73 million Americans who support and voted for President Trump, who looks down upon Republicans, who looks down upon people who own firearms? I own firearms. You might own firearms. What is it that we learn? We check the firearm immediately to see if it's loaded. And we never point in anyone's direction, which is the next question. So why didn't he check himself? The attorneys are going to ask, why didn't he check the firearm himself? If the armor was not in the church, why didn't he check the firearm himself? Now, people who follow Alec Baldwin on Instagram, the same people he sent to harass a Gold Star family, according to the latest lawsuit, I mean, that's the type of human being he is. But the real question is, why didn't he simply check the firearm himself? Because if you look here, he was only 18 inches away. Okay? 18 inches away. Less than 2 feet away. He couldn't check the firearm himself. I mean, are you kidding? You know how close you are to somebody with a loaded weapon or even a blank? Look, she could have lost her life with blanks. Forget about dummy rounds. Forget about live rounds. Just blanks alone could have seriously injured anyone. And they put plexiglass, according to one actor, around the cameras. They put plexiglass around the cameras to save the cameras, and apparently they didn't care about the actors. Why didn't he check the firearm himself? Why was he so close? That's another question. Why was he? They were so close, yet it wasn't being filmed. How does that work? The cinematographer is supposed to just. The cinematographer was supposed to remember the camera angle. You mean they weren't? I mean, it's digital. You're not wasting. I mean, you're not wasting any film. Like, yeah, there's storage capacity, but it was an impromptu rehearsal, an unscheduled rehearsal. So if it's unscheduled and impromptu, how are they going to remember everything? How are they going to remember everything without recording it? Kilgore Trout, thank you. Thank you so very much as always. Starting off the super chat, thank you. Kilgore, thank you. Why didn't he check the firearm himself? Why was he so number three, why was he so close? Lori, thank you. Why was he so close to the cinematographer? He was pointing at her midsection. That camera had to have been filming the actual hammer while he was pointing at her midsection less than 2 feet away. It had to have been, she had to have been filming over the camera. I mean, she had to have been filming over the Colt 45 and focusing on the hammer. I agree with you, John. She had to be. So why were they so close? That's the question. Did the scene involve that? Because apparently, according to the lawsuit, the chief of the electrician there, and according to the Gloria Allred lawsuit by the script supervisor, the scene did not ask for, the scene did not demand that he fire the weapon. So why was he so close to begin with? If it's a cross draw, how are you 2 feet away from, I mean, you can't even move if you moved your arms in a cross draw, you're going to then hit the camera or the cinematographer with the Colt 45. I mean, you need room. When you extend your arm, it's about 2 feet or so, but more than 2 feet. Okay? Or with your movement. And so, I mean, why was he that close? Why was he that close? Then it's, why did he pull the hammer back? I don't care if the scene called for it. That is so irrelevant. That's like as irrelevant as saying, and he was so proud of this also. He said, oh, well, Dave Hall said it was a cold gun. He said it was safe, and there was, who cares what Dave Hall said? Who cares what the assistant director said? Who cares? Only an imbecile, only a morally superior, ignorant imbecile who happens to be a morally superior liberal Democrat. But I repeat myself, who cares what the assistant director says about anything? You needed the armor in the church. You needed the armor to show you if it was loaded. If you weren't going to check yourself, which you should have done. But why did he pull the hammer back when in the search warrant, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, states he shouldn't have pulled the hammer back? So he says that he didn't pull the trigger of the Colt 45. So what? That's also irrelevant. If you pull the hammer back, you're basically firing the weapon. I mean, this is what happens when you have morally superior liberal Democrats living in their own fantasy world, their own bubble. Their warped view of morality, even owning a firearm is immoral to these people. It's like the most absurd mindset. The notion, the idea, the reality that you could save yourself, defend yourself from people who want to do you harm. That's like, that's in their fantasy world. It'll never happen. Only in the movies. They make money off firearms, but they don't want you to own firearms. And this wasn't an automatic. This was a semi-automatic. This was a revolver. And a very powerful one at that. So why did he pull the hammer back? He made such a big deal. He was so proud of himself. Oh my God, I've never seen somebody so proud of themselves. I only pulled the hammer back. I only pulled the hammer back. I would never, I would never, ever fire the way I didn't. It was a malfunction. So he wants to say it was a malfunction. And then and then Trevor Noah did this whole like 1 hour thing. I don't know how long it was, but how this was a workplace issue. Oh, this shouldn't have been a live round. It's like, it's not only about the live round. It's about, you would have found the live round had you checked. They want to obfuscate, and they want to muddy the waters and circumvent the reality that they are at fault. He is at fault. They want to obscure the reality he should have checked himself. That's not a workplace accident. That's reckless behavior. That's reckless behavior. You don't if a film scene calls, let's just say he's right about everything, but let's say he's right about everything. He truly didn't know it was loaded. Let's say he was right. The cinematographer was telling him to point in her direction, to pull the hammer back. He's still at fault. Even if he's right about everything, he's still at fault because he didn't check the firearm himself. He relied on the assistant director, and the attorney for the assistant director said, rightfully, it's not even his job. It's not even his job. And it's not his job. It was the armorer's job. She wasn't in the church. But he pulled back the hammer. Why did he do so? If he's going to say in a court of law that she told him, then the next question is, if you were that close to her and she was literally filming above, if she was literally filming above the, because you know what, if she's filming the hammer and he's aiming at her midsection, and I say this with all due respect because I know that a woman has lost her life, and Alec Baldwin accidentally ended this woman's life, and there's a family mourning her loss. And by the way, this is the epitome of liberal hypocrisy. She's a female cinematographer who I'm sure broke a glass ceiling. I agree with that. I'm not into like this absurd, political philosophy of 2020 where everybody's a victim and everyone has to, but no, it's true. She did have to, I'm sure, break some kind of ceiling. There aren't many female cinematographers, so he ended the life of a female cinematographer. You would think there would be more outrage in Hollywood, but you're talking about the epicenter of immorality. So these people are the most immoral, cutthroat, backstabbing, nasty people. Nasty, nasty people. Okay? These people will tell you how much they care about you and then just basically betray you in 2 seconds just for politics or whatever. And here's a female cinematographer who is one of perhaps the first in the world, okay? She was perhaps one of the first in the world, you know? and so here she is doing something pretty special, right? And he ends her life. He ends her life. I mean, the man, there's another way to say it, but because of algorithm, he ends her life. Why was he pulling back the hammer if the armorer told the detectives he shouldn't have pulled back the hammer? Then the issue of the live round. If a person who owns firearms knows that at any moment, see, morally superior liberal Democrats, wonderful liberal Democrats, they truly, I know this mentality because it almost permeated into my mind after so many years of being a liberal Democrat. I grew up like in the 80s and 90s that, my friends had, BB guns and, like we would, it was more of like a different culture back then. Okay. I went to the range when I was in my early 20s. I took a course, couple courses, but other than that, like I became this liberal Democrat my whole life, and then the mentality that the firearm was actually a sentient being crept into my mind. And they're not they're not sentient beings. If something bad happens with a firearm, it's either the evil that exists within the mind of the criminal, the, vicious, you know, nature or personality, or, the despicable character of somebody who is holding the firearm. Very rarely is it a malfunction. It could be, but it's not. The malfunction usually works against the person holding the semi-automatic, so a malfunction will prevent the firearm from working. Malfunctions usually prevent the firearm from working. They don't usually um, they don't usually work in the favor of the person holding the firearm, or not favor, but they don't usually discharge. DJJ, thank you. DJJ, hi, hello. DJJ, thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope you're doing well. Hope you have a great evening. But DJJ, thank you. C Murph. C Murph, thank you. Thank you, C Murph. Thank you so much. C Murph, DJJ, thank you. Thank you so very much. But why would, in addition to what, in the question, that's number 3, where are we at? 4. Why didn't he assume that a live round could have been inserted into that firearm? When I look at a firearm, if I check a revolver or a semi-auto, okay, and I check and I rack the slide and I look to see, what's in the hole, and if there's nothing there, and I, pull out the magazine first, and I check, and with my, even, you can always even put your finger in there, or with the revolver, you check the cylinder, you put, you, and you look through the barrel, and so if I turn away for a second, if I turn away for less than a minute, a second, I know that anybody could put a live round in there, or a live round can somehow get in there. So the next question is, why didn't they have continual possession? Why didn't the armorer have continual possession? And by the way, that's not her fault. The armorer should have had continual possession. Does Alec Baldwin know where the firearm was at all times before taking possession of it? If he doesn't, that's not a workplace tragedy. Sorry. Leadslinger 49, thank you. Leadslinger 49, thank you so very, very much. Leadslinger 49, thank you so very much. Why didn't Alec Baldwin care about who was in possession of the firearm before he held it? The assistant director is not an expert in terms of firearms. He should have, at least somebody should have shown him each of the blanks or the dummy rounds. Leadslinger 49, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. So Randy, exactly, he feels no guilt, but he should probably feel very guilty because he is very much to blame for all of this with his reckless behavior. He doesn't know. So according to the armor, it was given to the assistant director, and for about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, according to the court documents. Leadslinger, thank you. According to court documents, it was left unattended for 15 minutes. Question number 4 or 5 or 6. Why was it left unattended for 15 minutes? If indeed If indeed it was left unattended, why was it even left unattended for 1 minute? Why was it left unattended for 1 minute? Forget about 15 minutes. Why was it left unattended ever on a tray because of protocols pertaining to you know what? Are you kidding me? They care more about you know what than firearm safety. Okay? This is basically the epitome of society today. It is the this is Idiocracy, but the liberal version of the documentary. It's now a documentary. It's no longer satire. This is a documentary. They care more about an invisible problem than the actual dilemma of live rounds being inserted into a firearm. They tried to make it into the live round issue, and it's yes, somebody put the live round in. It could have been the armor by accident. It probably wasn't. It could have been somebody on the set putting it into the firearm. Now, I have no clue why the district attorney doesn't think that's possible. She said, "Oh, well, there's no evidence." Yeah, of course there's no evidence. That's why it's called sabotage at the moment. There's no what do you think the person that did it was going to come out and say, "Oh, by the way, I just wanted to see somebody suffer." And so, do you think the person's going to say that he or she wanted somebody to suffer? No. So the live round got in there by somebody put it in there. Okay. Not saying it was Alec Baldwin, not saying that it was anyone else deliberately, but somebody put it in there. Could have been the armor by accident. It could have been a. It would be very bizarre if it was a blank, but who knows? Like a blank that wasn't made correctly? I don't know. Probably wasn't the armor because the armor knew only she was the only person there who had any experience with firearms. Nobody else did. Nobody else did. They could have been playing with it and who knows, taken out one of the blanks for some reason and then inserted a different and inserted a live round by accident. Who knows? Definitely wasn't Donald Trump. Probably was somebody on the set. Probably was sabotage, which is what the attorney said. That's why somebody lost her life, because he aimed in her direction and fired a live round. Actually, Donald Trump, this is the thing. Like, I've heard this repeated by, because I watch these liberal and left leaning and progressive, like, million sub channels, and they're like, oh yeah, Trump could end someone's life on Fifth Avenue. They still vote for him. It's like, no. Alec Baldwin actually ended someone's life. So the the notion the notion that the notion that people would still vote for Trump if he ended someone's life, that's part of the myth regarding Trump. In actuality, like all of these myths are refuted by reality. Like Ukraine is invading, Russia's invading Ukraine under mashed potato brains presidency, not Trump. Gee, what do they have on mashed potato brains Biden? I wonder what Putin has on Biden for him to feel emboldened to invade Ukraine. Oh, that's right. That those myths, even though like the opposite takes place, and then they're so warped. They impeached Trump on the belief, without direct evidence, that he pressured Zelensky, and Zelensky even said he never pressured me. And Alec Baldwin actually ends someone's life. actually ends, the man actually ended someone's life. And still the morally superior liberal Democrats defend him. It's a complete reversal. It's like the antithesis, or it's like exactly what they were saying about Trump. Alec Baldwin tested out. Like everything they said about Trump, we are watching in real time, but the culprits are Democrats. And they're okay with everything. Oh, well, it's not. Notice how the media is not blaming Biden, even though Biden wouldn't let Ukraine into NATO and approved the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was hilarious, which basically is the most hilarious, absurd thing. Russia has all the leverage it needs. They provide 30 to 40% of oil and gas to Germany and the rest of the European Union. So, like, you see these stupid, like, oh, we're going to sanction. He doesn't care about any sanctions. In a second, he could increase the heating bills tenfold of every European household. He wouldn't care. I mean, it's like he doesn't care. All of the, oh, we're going to sanction Putin. He doesn't care. Why would Putin care? And the climate change activists, which I believe it's a very important issue, yes, could be existential in 100, 200 years. Probably not, because there have been failed predictions since the 70s. But what happened to renewable energy? Why don't you just tell Putin that you're going to use solar and wind? Ah, that's right. That's right. Irish Mexican, hello, thank you. That's right. Why don't we just tell Putin that Europe is going to get all of its energy from AOC's Green New Deal, electric cars, wind, and solar, and we'll ban air travel too. That'll show Putin. Not. David, I didn't know that. But it's like, okay, so anyway, getting back to Alec Baldwin. So a little weird, thank you. And so why didn't Joanne, thank you. So why didn't they check? And okay, there's another question. Might not be as important as, well, okay. The question I was going to ask is, why was the Video Village set monitor not working throughout the set? But then um, that question leads to, why was there a protest of camera crew? How do you not have involuntary manslaughter charges leveled upon not only Alec Baldwin, but other people? And I think the armorer is innocent here. Let's just say, hypothetically, she accidentally put the live round in there. Well, if had she been there before the recording, almost certain recording of what took place, she would have showed everyone and said, "Oh my God, there's a live round in here." She could have said, "I accidentally put a live round," or somebody put a live round. I don't know what. But if she had accidentally put the live round, she would have found that out had she checked prior to him firing the weapon. But she didn't check because she wasn't there. Because guess what? It was an impromptu, unscheduled rehearsal. Why? Because the camera crew was not there. Nate and SoCal, hello. The camera crew was not there. Why was the camera crew not there? Because they were protesting unsafe working conditions. That's why. That's why. So you can't say it's a workplace accident when you have protests, when you don't have the armor in the church, when you're pulling back the hammer 2 feet away from somebody's midsection and you don't even check. Are you kidding me? You must be kidding me. Ted, thank you. You must be kidding me. And nobody's touching this. They're still tubining themselves over you know what. Nobody's touching this story with a 10-foot pole because, like Michael Avenatti and like Andrew Cuomo and like Chris Cuomo and like, giving the Emmy to the governor of New York and like Anthony Weiner and like Juicy Smollett, it's an endless list of embarrassing news stories that show how despicable Democrats are. Or some Democrats. Ricarda Sunesin, Ricarda, thank you. Ricarda, thank you so very much. I hope you're having a great evening. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Ricarda Sunesin. So kind of you. Very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you. Thank you, Ricarda. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Ricarda. I never joined the $20 million venture capital people. I never joined a network, and then suddenly had my subscriber count go from 150,000 to 1 million, like some people who I won't name. I didn't go from like I'm not going to join a network that, I'm going to do this myself, and I've done it myself, and it's with the help of everyone here, Ricarda, everyone here. And you've been so amazing, all of you. Ricarda, thank you again. We're almost at 200,000 subscribers. I'm almost at 20,000 with the stock market crash channel. So it's not bad. For somebody, thank goodness, like DJJ, thank you. For somebody that, nobody really knows who I am, which is fantastic. I enjoy like the anonymity. It's great. But I'm doing it all myself with your help, and I appreciate that, everybody. Ricarda, thank you again. So, insubordinate, I agree. Thank you. So why was there a protest of camera crew? And even more important, almost as important, is why did they film after the camera crew left? That poor cinematographer. You know what? Let's listen to this. This is hilarious, okay? We'll listen to this. Okay? We'll listen to this. Because this is when he initially started lying through his teeth. Well, he was lying through his teeth from day one, but this is kind of hilarious. So this is when he was saying, this is before the George Stephanopoulos interview. This is like him saying, I can't speak. So this is before he began really lying through his teeth. And just from this roadside interview, there's so many questions you can ask, but here.
Going on with the case. I'm not allowed to make any comments because it's an ongoing investigation. I've been ordered by the Sheriff's Department in Santa Fe. I can't answer any questions about the investigation. I can't. Okay. It's an active investigation.
If that's the case, then why on earth did the sheriffs immediately say that's not true? And then why on earth did he tell all to George Stephanopoulos 3 or 4 weeks later? About a month later, he told George Stephanopoulos, she told me to pull the hammer back. All I did was pull the hammer back and da-da-da and all this stuff. Why on earth did this man tell all he's done is on social media, forwarding articles blaming the assistant director and the armorer, And like, if he was told not to tell people, and then suddenly, so he's lying about that. He's lying through his teeth about that. That's like an overt lie. There's no nuance, or that's not a lie by omission. That's just an overt lie.
In terms of a woman dying, she was my friend. She was my friend. The day I arrived in Santa Fe to start shooting, I took her to dinner with Joel, the director. We were a very, very, well-oiled crew shooting a film together, and then
How are you a well-oiled crew if you have a camera crew actually protesting? How are you a well-oiled crew, but your camera crew is protesting, and apparently like people allegedly made shirts about how messed up the working conditions were, like satirical shirts? How on earth are you a well-oiled crew? How does that work?
then
How on earth does that work? You're a well-oiled crew, but there's a camera crew that protested and walked off the set because of unsafe working conditions, and oh, by the way, you replaced them with non-union labor.
this horrible event happened. Now, I've been told multiple times, don't make any comments about the ongoing investigation, and I can't.
But you did. But you did to George Stephanopoulos, didn't you? You sure did.
I can't. That's it.
You met
What
with,
are
what
the questions you have other than that?
you met with I'm afraid I forget her name at the moment, but you met with her family in the day.
Yes,
Her
I
name
met
is
with her.
Helena. If you're spending this much time,
Okay, look. This is what they do all the time. It's kind of really pathetic. David, hello. This is what happens. Like they're always trying to get some moral high ground. So then you have Hilaria getting upset, like, you better, you didn't know the name. It's like, well, your husband ended her life accidentally. So maybe you probably don't have the moral high ground?
I'm waiting for us. You should
don't
know
know
her
her
name.
name?
Her name is Helena.
And you see, sorry about the echo. You see Alec Baldwin, and he's kind of like, he's the acting matrix in his mind. He's like, okay, I'm lying, but at the same time, let me point out something like something I view to be hypocritical or disingenuous while I'm being disingenuous. So he's spending this whole time being deceitful and disingenuous, but he can still point out something disingenuous from the reporters.
Helena Hutchins. I met with her husband Matthew and her son. Yeah, that's right.
And how did that meeting go? Well, I appreciate that he was probably very upset.
The guy is overwhelmed with grief. This is something that from time to time, but nothing like this. This is a 1 in a trillion episode. It's a 1 in a trillion.
Yet again, the statistics are being butchered by a liberal Democrat. So it's not a 1 in a trillion, because if you take the total number of workplace tragedies in sets where A, the film crew protests and leaves because of safety concerns, in sets where B, the armor isn't in the actual building where the firearms are being used, in sets where C, a firearm that's being used is left unattended for 10 minutes to 15 minutes to possibly a couple hours, in a film set where D, I mean, there's so many. The cloud software, the video monitors throughout the set weren't working because of the protest. If you have all of these factors, and he shouldn't have been pulling back the hammer, according to the armorer, and then an impromptu, unscheduled. So in film sets that had all of these peculiarities and blatant, flagrant breaches of safety protocol, yeah, it's not one in a trillion. It's not one in a trillion. Thank you, Barbie. Thank you. It's not one in a trillion. In that type of environment, it's sadly would be very common.
And so he is in shock. He has a 9-year-old son. You know, Rehearsal would tell us what their investigation has yielded. What else do you have?
Would you ever work on another film set that involves firearms of that nature?
I couldn't answer that question. I really don't have any. I have no sense of that at all. I do know that an ongoing effort to limit the use of firearms on film sets is something I'm extremely interested in. Yeah.
I think everyone is interested in an ongoing effort to limit your use of firearms anywhere. Alec Baldwin. This man, they go from deceit to pontificating in less than a millisecond. In less than a millisecond, this man went from, I can't speak, I won't speak, to, oh yes, I'm all for the Association of the Preservation of Preventing Future Use of Firearms in Film Sets, Climate Change Activists Group Association of Greater Northwestern California. He just it's like immediate. He went from I can't speak to speaking with George Stephanopoulos, telling all, and then it's like you see him immediately go for, oh yeah, I want to limit the use of firearms. Well, you ended someone's life, and it had nothing to do with the firearm. It had to do with your reckless behavior. It was an accident because nobody checked the firearm. He didn't check the firearm. It was an accident because of that. That's why it was an accident. That's why it was an accident. It was an accident because he didn't check the firearm. That's why. And he pulled the hammer back, and that's why that's why it happened. And the armorer wasn't in the church. So he can talk about limiting firearms on the set. If you limit firearms and then the same breaches of protocol take place, you're still going to get that situation.
Where are you? But remember something that I think is important. That is, how many bullets have been fired in films and TV shows in the last 75 years?
Okay, and okay. Hold on one second.
Effort to limit the use of firearms on film sets is something I'm extremely interested in. Yeah, where are you? But remember something that I think is important, and that is, how many bullets have been fired in films and TV shows in the last 75 years? This is America. How many?
Okay, how many have been fired on film sets the last 75 years? How many have been fired with camera crew protesting without the armorer there and without checking the firearm before they're being utilized? Again, yet another example of liberal Democrats butchering and mangling numbers and statistics. This is exactly what Mark Twain said about statistics. He's bringing up all the times, all the Westerns. John Wayne knew how to use firearms. They checked the Colt 45 before John Wayne was even. He probably checked it himself, even after it was checked. Okay? The protocol is you always check to see if it's unloaded, even after it's being checked. After it was checked and confirmed unloaded, you check yourself. You never point at anyone. That's also, he was told never to point at anyone. Reports say that he was told never to point at anyone. So, of course, he's bringing up how safe other sets have been. Yes, because they follow safety protocol. You can point to the safety record of a whole bunch of risky activities of the people that lose their of the accidents that take place. A great many are the result of reckless behavior. There are times where people take precaution and a tragedy takes place. It's nobody's fault. This is not one of those examples.
How many bullets have gone off in movies and on TV sets before? How many billions in the last 75 years? And nearly all of it without.
He's like, billions? I don't think billions, no. Billions? No. No. It's absurd.
Incident. So what has to happen now is we have to realize that when it does go wrong, and it's this horrible catastrophic thing, some new measures have to take place. Rubber guns, plastic guns.
This is not about the industry. He's making it about like the industry and how people have to learn from this tragedy. And it's like, no. I was told from this firearms expert during a training session years back, and I'll never forget it. He told me, like, 4, 5, 6 things you always have to remember. And he said, if you follow those things, you'll never have a problem. And it's true. It's true. You will never have a problem if you follow safety protocols. Nico! Nico Hammer, thank you! Hi, H. I hope all is well. Go to Canada and truck drivers love from Australia, as always. Yes, I agree with you. Nico Hammer, thank you. I hope all is well. I hope all is well. I agree with you 100%. Nico, thank you. Thank you so much. And you would think, Nico, you would think AOC and they would care about the working class, of course. If the working class does something they don't like, well, then there you go. Nico, thank you so very much. I agree with you. Nico Hammer, as always, hope all is well. Happy New Year. Thank you for just always watching, and thank you always for your support. Nico, thank you. Greatly, greatly appreciate it. I agree with you as well. I think that what those people are doing is, in this day and age, with this media monstrosity, and with governments trying their best to impose as many draconian policies as possible, I agree 100% with you.
No live. No real armaments on set. That's not for me to decide. It's urgent. It's urgent that you understand I'm not an expert in this field. So whatever other people decide is the best way to go.
If you're not an expert, why didn't you wait for the armor? My God. Nico! Nico, thank you! Thank you so much, Nico Hammer. People over here are slowly waking up. Thank God and Happy New Year to you. Thank you, Nico. You know what? God bless the people of Australia, of Canada, of New Zealand, of the blue states in this country, and of the red states. But why, Nico, all you have, first of all, thank you so very much, Nico Hammer. Thank you so very, very much. All you have to do, Nico Hammer, thank you so much. Very, very kind of you. Why why are AOC and Eric Swalwell partying in Florida, a red state? Because they don't want to party in the blue states, because they know the draconian laws are messing with their personal life. And you can impose every draconian, completely irrational law. If you're focused on what you've tried to prevent 2 years ago by ending the US economy, the Australian economy, Nico, inflation is at an all-time high in Australia. Is it not? Isn't that the case? So here. And same here. Isn't it at a record high? All-time high of 20. Oh my God. Oh, that's in 1951. Well, that's not as bad as ours. You're not nearly as bad as where we are, but it's still bad, you know. And not to mention everything else going on. My God, God bless the people of Australia. So let's see, where's the? So it's not as bad as. So here, 6-year high. Reuters. Australia core inflation speeds to 6-year high in Q3. So but that every country, Nico, that imposed draconian laws had inflation spike. Every country, Nico, that imposed the draconian laws. Nico Hammer, thank you so much. Yes, it is, buddy. We pay so much for fuel and goods, as in groceries, etc. It's crazy. As a truck, you know what I meant to say. Fuel in Australia. Let's look at that. Thank you so much, Nico. Thank you so much. So greatly appreciated. And it's just so greatly appreciated. Fuel cost, Australia. Here, the gas is increased by 50%. Australia's petrol prices. Why now might be a good time to fill up, as experts anticipate new highs. Automotive fuel was the most significant contributor in Australia to the 3.5% annual inflation rate. See, that was viewed in our country like 3.5% was like, whoa, that's way too. Now we have 7%, Nico. Do not definitely other countries don't follow our footsteps, but actually I think in a way we're following the footsteps of other countries. But who knows? Anyway, these footsteps are heading to you know where. Nico, thank you. Food costs, energy costs. And they're only going to go up, you know. Petrol prices skyrocket across Australia and they're not slowing down. This is why. So they're at all-time highs in Australia. They're at all-time highs in everywhere that listened to the morally superior. Nico Hammer, thank you so much. So kind of you. Thank you. Let's see. Food costs. How? Because food costs through the roof. So. Let's see. Food costs. Food inflation averaged 5.4%, 5.14%, reaching an all-time high until 2020. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Oh, this is interesting. Australia food inflation. Let's see here. Well, you know what? It's not as bad as here. So, Nico, there are certain things that are happening in your beautiful country that we can never allow to happen in this country. But you're not. The inflation isn't as bad as here. So let's see, Bureau of Labor Statistics, inflation. Check this out. Check this out, Nico. Everybody here. We always look at this. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Check this out, everybody. Okay. In the United States, gas prices 50% increase in 1 year. Nico Hammer, thank you so very much. Nico, in the US. So hold on 1 second. 50% increase. 37% increase in used cars and trucks. Energy, 30% increase. It's probably more than that. Utility, 24% increase. Meat, eggs, poultry, fish, 12% increase. Probably way more than that. New vehicles, 11% increase. All items, 7%. It's not. And this is not calculated in the manner that the consumer price index is not calculated in the manner that it was in 1982. And if it was, then you would get 15% inflation. 15% inflation you would get. So everything has gone up. And that's because Democrats pushed to end the US economy, in large part to kick Trump out of office. Because that's really what they cared about. They didn't care about what as much as pushing Trump out of office. That's why you have, I don't even want to get into it, a scandal with Boris Johnson. I'm not going to get into it. And Ban, thank you. Greatly appreciated. Nico Hammer, thank you so much. So, let's look at Russia. Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. So this is hilarious too. Nico, everybody here. Thank you again, Nico Hammer. I can't thank you enough. Thank you. So Biden approves Nord Stream 2. Gee, why did Biden approve the Nord Stream 2? I thought Trump was cozying up. He was cozying up to Putin. He was cozying up. He was getting in bed with Putin. He was snuggling under the sheets with Putin. Come here, Vladdy. It's warm under the covers. But mashed potato brains handed him a gift by waiving sanctions on gas pipeline that could destabilize Europe. That's the pipeline is specifically so they're not destabilized because they try their best to get Europe, even more so than the US, tries renewable energy. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So that's why they have a massive pipeline between Russia and Germany called Nord Stream 2 is ready to start pumping gas. At any point, Putin could just shut down the pipeline, and then it's really funny. They're like, well, we're not gonna allow the pipeline to continue. It's almost already done. And at the end of the day, no matter what Russia does, unfortunately, because they've tried to evolve so quickly to renewables that the demand does not reflect the technology that we currently have. So gas prices are at all-time highs, and guess what? It makes Russia far more influential. Trump administration opposed it vehemently, but Biden waived sanctions. So who's the Putin puppet now? Okay. Everything Trump did was like far more belligerent towards Russia. And everything like what Democrats did was it was projection. So they're the ones who are more beholden to Russia. And Putin, the Trump administration had loudly opposed Nord Stream 2. There's already Nord Stream 1, by the way, providing gas from Russia. They provide 30 to 40%. It gets cold in Germany and France and the UK. It gets cold. It's not like California where our weather is like warm generally most of the year. I mean, for us, 50 degrees is cold. 50 degrees in many parts of Europe, most parts of Europe, people are wearing short sleeves. And even some parts of the US, people wearing short sleeves. It's like summer. They have zero leverage. Like, it's going to be very bad. This whole thing, like, they're trying to, if Russia invades Ukraine, and I'm against that, by the way, I don't want them to invade Ukraine. I don't want them to invade. But Biden, mashed potato brains, and NATO and Western countries, they play the most disingenuous, dishonest, manipulative game. Zelensky of Ukraine, the president of Ukraine, literally asked, can I join NATO? And instead of just simply giving him a no, they're like, well, you have to stop corruption. If you want to join, you can still join. And it's like they're provoking Russia. They know exactly it's an existential issue. This is a national security issue for Russia. They know that Russia is going to invade Ukraine if Ukraine ever gets close to entering NATO. They know this. So what does Biden do? Oh, we oppose Russian aggression. Okay. But we can't let Ukraine in. But you know what? We're totally going to allow them in one day. And they have a right to join. But you have no intention of allowing them to join ever. So you're provoking Russia while at the same time lying to Ukraine. Okay? Biden lied to Zelensky. He doesn't have any intention. None of these countries have any intention ever of letting Ukraine into NATO. It will never, ever happen. And but they want to then pretend that they're the the vanguards of freedom. And now they're also pretending that any sanctions, economic sanctions against Russia, that they would care about. It's like they provide oil, 30 to 40% of oil and gas for the entire European Union. And Trump is right. The European Union is basically controlled by its energy needs. Their society doesn't function without oil and gas, like no society functions without oil and gas. Notice how they're not like talking about sanctioning Russia through the use of renewables. They're not saying, "Oh, well, we're going to deny." They're not saying, "You know what? We're just going to increase our use of renewable energy." Sergio, hello. So I mean, it's like, and then when it happens, he not only did he approve. First of all, why the U.S. would be in a position to approve anything in Europe that makes it should make no sense to anybody, but none of this makes any sense. None of it makes any sense at all. None of it makes any sense. But at the end of the day, look, has Putin done some pretty nasty things? Yes, very nasty things. You can go list it. I'm not even going to list the things because it's probably against the YouTube policies. So, but is Russia in the right now? Yeah, and Ukraine is put in a bad position primarily because of NATO and Biden. They had no intention of ever allowing Ukraine into the alliance ever, but they want to perpetuate this myth that they will one day, thus provoking Russia and putting the U.S. and NATO in a position of, oh well, we'll protect everybody if from Russian aggression. You're causing this Russian aggression. We would never allow Mexico or Canada. We have the Monroe Doctrine. We won't even allow anyone in the Western Hemisphere. So, or we didn't. So, Eddie, exactly. Liquefied natural gas. So, ladies and gentlemen, Nico, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Nico Hammer, I can't thank you enough. Greatly, 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 greatly appreciated. Nico, everybody here, thank you. To my super chat, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Greatly appreciated. It's been an awesome, well over an hour live stream. And just thank you so much. Um, I might be back in about an hour, probably, maybe. Not sure. Probably won't. I'll probably be back tomorrow. Um, be here for the live stream tomorrow. I'll have a live stream tomorrow by about 3 p.m. So I'll have a live stream tomorrow about 3 p.m. and then another one by around, well, about, like same time, 7:30, 8 p.m. Janet! Janet McGuffey! Janet, thank you so much. Nico, Janet, thank you so very much, Janet. Always so sweet of you, so kind of you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Janet, so very, very much. It's just like when Biden spoke to the Afghan president. He's like, hey, come on, man. People are talking. They think your country is going to collapse, man. Come on now. And then it collapsed immediately. He just cares about public relations. Could you imagine a chess match between mashed potato brains and Putin or Z? Could you imagine? It would be the 85 Bears versus Jerry Nadler softball team. Could you imagine, Nico? A chess match between mashed potato brains, our mashed potato brains, and Putin. Ed from Queens took all my money out of the market now. Ed, God bless you. Hey, I would just stay in cash. What's wrong with cash? What's wrong with cash? What's wrong with being on the sidelines? This whole thing, there is no alternative, Tina. There is no alternative. Of course, there. Just what's wrong with liquidity and cash? This year is going to be a bad, very bad year for stocks and Bitcoin. The Dow is going to descend towards 20,000. It'll hit 20,000 eventually, and Bitcoin will hit 10,000 eventually. We're not even, Ed and Janet and Nico, we're not even looking at China and what they're going to do, God forbid, with Taiwan. And God bless the people of Taiwan, and God bless the people of Ukraine. This is what happened, unfortunately, in the Peloponnesian Wars. This is a lesson that humanity learned. The Siege of Milos, the Melian Dialogue. Judith Gurian, thank you. Judith, Ed, Janet, Nico. Really quickly, the classics. So, Athens, the fate of Milos, the Peloponnesian Wars between Sparta and Athens. So this is the dialogue between the Athenians and the Melians. And unfortunately, this is a terrible testament to, by Thucydides, the man. Thucydides was the man. This is an unfortunate testament to how despicable we are as human beings, oftentimes. This even happens within interpersonal communication. Just ask any Democratic operative, but here. Here, this is interesting, okay? And how, pray, could it turn out to be good for us to serve you, to serve as for you to rule? Because Athenians, because you would have the advantage of submitting before suffering the worst, and we should gain by not destroying you. Millions, so that you would not consent to our being neutral friends instead of enemies, but allies of neither side. Athenians, no, for your hostility cannot so much hurt as your friendship will be an argument to our subjects of our weakness, and your enmity of our power. Hold on, there's one part where you kind of realize. So this is, you may be sure that we are as well aware as we are as well as aware as you of the difficulty of contending against your power and fortune, unless terms be equal. But we trust that the gods may grant us fortune as good as yours, since we are just men fighting against unjust. And what we want in power will be made up by the alliance, okay, who are bound, if only for very shame. Our confidence, therefore, is not so utterly irrational. Athenians, when you speak of the favor of the gods, we may as fairly hope for that as ourselves. Neither our pretensions nor our conduct being in any way contrary to what men believe of the gods or practice among themselves. Of the gods we believe, and of men we know that by a necessary law of their nature they rule whenever they can. And it is not as if we We're the first to make this law or to act upon it when made. We found it existing before us and shall leave it to exist forever after us. And all we do is make use of it, knowing that you and everyone else, having the same power as we would have done, would do the same as we do. Thus, as far as the gods are concerned, we have no fear, no reason to fear that we shall be at a disadvantage. So they're basically saying, you know what? Might makes right, and it really doesn't matter if your cause is just, if we have the power and the means. Nico Hammer, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. So kind of you, Nico. And thank you for watching for years. Thank you so much, Nico. And I hope you're doing well, and I hope everything gets, I hope everything gets a lot better for Australia and Canada and the US and every country. It's like, well, but unfortunately, all I can say is save money, as I thank everybody and beg for super chat, but save your money. The market's going to be very bad this year. Terrible, terrible, terrible this year. I think every stock market throughout the world, every equities market in every country. Not every country, obviously, but the countries that followed the protocol that we did, shutting down, ending economies. And this year will be a terrible, terrible consequence. Jeremy Grantham says, Nico Hammer, Jeremy Grantham says that we're in a Sigma 3 super bubble. A Sigma 3 super bubble. And things are going to come crashing down. And I predicted this in the Federalist in October. Nico Hammer, thank you so very much. I can't thank you enough, Nico. So kind of you. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Nico Hammer, as always. Thank you so much. Judith, thank you. Ed, cash. Just savings, cash. You don't have to invest in this unpredictable world this year. Janet, as always, so sweet and so kind of you. Thank you. To my super chat, thanks everybody. God bless. Thank you so much. Nico, can't thank you enough. Thank you. Janet, as always, thank you. Ed, Judith, so sweet of you. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Be here at 3 p.m. tomorrow, Pacific time. Thanks.